of facilities automation started back in 82, 81 when AutoCAD was invented. We then saw that as 2D drafting, and it was typically on a single workstation. You had a computer, it was expensive, software was expensive, but you were not doing manual drafting. Then came along computer-aided maintenance management, where we were doing a lot more tracking of work tickets and preventive maintenance. Then came 3D visualization, which took advantage of more of the power and graphics in computers. And then we started seeing the advancement of BIM and big data and the 3D elements or visualization of a project. And this just made a huge difference on how much hard disk space you were going to need to keep all of this information, plus the skills that go along with it. Recently, we've seen the advent of smartphones and tablets that are connected more to the internet, and now the cloud, and whatever that is, and we'll talk about that at the very end, of the definition of the cloud and how it is impacting all of these different technologies. And so recently, the last journal from IFMA had a huge amount of information about technology. I found it the best publication that they put out in a long time on leveraging technology for facilities management, for BIM and the future. Excellent article. Tools of the trade, about every one of the tools. So if you are an IFMA member, do read this particular issue. CMMS, realizing the value and what it all takes to put it together. So on your little handout, you'll see that there is who needs building information. It's such a large group of people, and through the life cycle, so much information is collected. We want to make sure that we collect the right information and maintain it for the life cycle of the building, which is typically going to be 30 to 50 years of operations, whereas the actual design and construction may be 3 or 5 years. And so the information, we'd like to see it persist all the way through the life cycle. So when we talk about CAD, in the old days, this was the drafting room, and everybody would work at their station, and a manager would walk around and see how everybody's working. We all, as an output, got blueprints. I don't know if anybody has blueprints anymore. They may be rolled up in a cabinet somewhere, but that's how we communicated between all of the trades and all the regulators and people that were involved. As mentioned, AutoCAD, which I was involved with in 1982, created the .dwg format, which is the drawing format. The company is Autodesk, and they've rebranded, and they also make a product called Revit, which is very closely associated with BIM. It's sort of the Kleenex of BIM. It is not BIM, but it is highly related. And so when we look at the benefits of computer-aided design, accuracy, it is right down to as accurate as you'd like. It's editable, so you can, like word processing, change things, update things, share things. There are layers, and layers are a very important concept to understand in the power of what we call intelligence, in that the CAD drawings do have intelligence if you can extract it out. If not, they are just about as dumb as blueprints. And then there are symbols which allow us to do reoccurrences of things that are happening on the floor plate that we can then count or add up or do values against, etc. And then the key thing is that drawings, to some degree, are shareable, that people can actually send them to somebody or deliver them to somebody as a record of the actual project. So when we talk about layers, AIA, American Institute of Architects, has a layering standard, which I hope most of you are sort of aware of. On the handout I did list out the base layers that a facilities person should have in their CAD library of what are the layers that they are going to use every day to actually manage their facilities. And when we talk about AutoCAD, one of the problems was that it was expensive. Years ago, it was about $4,000. Bob, roughly, what is AutoCAD today? Same. So then they brought out AutoCAD LT, which is about $1,000 today, I understand. Some people have Visio. One of the things that I will suggest is a great takeaway today is something called DraftSight, which is an AutoCAD equivalent alternative, and it's free. And I've been using it in our operation for quite a while. I know Paul's been playing with it quite a bit. It is pretty amazing for a free product, which reads and writes DWG file format. So there's what it kind of looks like, and there's those layers being shown, and there's an example of certain layers being turned on in DraftSight, where you can turn on and off the layers that you need to be able to present information internally or share it with other people. Obviously, we're always doing 2D floor plans. We're doing graphics that we use for wayfinding. We're using ways to communicate to people on how to actually, visualize the facility. And of course, fire safety plans, numbering of spaces, management of information that ties the number for the room to the actual number on the wall. You hope that that is also the number that is being used when the actual drawings are being put together for inventory. And so, back some time ago, there was this move to computerized maintenance management systems, which allows you to manage these kinds of things in a facility. This is what facilities people sort of deal with every day. That there are either going to be on-demand problems of this nature, or there's going to be scheduled preventive maintenance activities of this nature. This is what facilities people do. And so what they typically have is a database. And my background is primarily in database. And I'm going to give you a little bit of basic information on database, because everybody in this room is probably a spreadsheet user and has been for a long time. And spreadsheets and email combined are the tools of the trade for most people. But we're getting too much data to put into a spreadsheet. And so we now have to move our data from spreadsheet environments into a structured database environment. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a touch of that. What happens is that there is, in red there is what's called validated data. That means that you can't just put in whatever you like. You can't put in a random value. You have to put in a list of predetermined values with regards to who can put in a work ticket, what's the property building floor space. Location, this right here, would not be a validated field, because it might be under the desk or above the ceiling or something random that someone would put in. But wherever we see problem information, equipment code, the word code means that it is coming from another list or another spreadsheet, and that we're going to draw from that, and you may have the rights to add to that list. If you buy a new piece of equipment, somebody has to put it in inventory and put the information in against that. So this is the basics of 1980s, 1990s database information about a facility. Typically, when we talk about building, floor, and space code, that should be tied to a drawing, so that you can actually show someone to go down the hallway and around the corner. When we talk about computer-aided maintenance management, we talk about work requests and tickets. How many tickets were done in a month? How many tickets were done year to date? And this is from one of our clients in Florida, and I noticed over here that that is electrical. So electrical, plumbing, this will come to no surprise to you folks, but the amount of electrical issues, and this is one of the reasons that Sunny is here today, is that the amount of electrical issues is always going to be incredibly high. And there are a lot of issues. Anything that happens in the facility is typically going to be driven by something around electrical aspects. So this might be a little hard for you to see right now, but I did give it to you on a handout. If you could just turn to that page, I'm just going to give you a very, very quick database lesson. In the facilities management world, these are all of the tables or spreadsheets that you're going to need. What we do in our system is put it together in English, so that it's all in plain English, because people like words that they understand. So equipment, maintenance, space, personnel, suites, projects, tasks. Equipment, you can see here, see the field list, and for tasks, you can see the field list. This is something that you can refer to that is the kinds of spreadsheets that you're going to have in your organization, or, correspondingly, a database. So if we look at this is only a partial part of the list of what do we want to know about a piece of equipment. And so I've given you a full list of all of the different data fields. Each one of these is a field down here, and typically that would be across the top of your spreadsheet. And you're going to have hundreds of pieces of equipment, and you're going to have certain fields that are going to be filled out, and certain of those fields are going to be validated. And these are we can't just make up a vendor, and we can't just make up a warranty, and we can't just make up a piece of equipment. We have to assign it to a database, and there needs to be a process in place that somebody who has the rights is adding appropriate information to the database. And the same thing holds true for tasks. This is where we're actually assigning a piece of equipment to a person at a time to do something. And there is going to be an estimated cost, there's going to be an actual cost, there's going to be outside or internal people involved. But these are the kinds of databases, no matter what we're using to capture the data, we have to put them into a structured database, or what's called a relational database structure. And when we talk about BIM, BIM is, as I used the word before, a tsunami of information. You have way more information than you can ever digest. So you want to make sure that you're going to be selective in what you're going to need no matter what, and still keep that tsunami of data in the background so that you can draw into it to query it and keep it alive. But you do want to make sure that all of your facilities portfolio has a certain amount of information about it that you can rely on. So then we move into computer-aided facilities management, which is, again, the ability to attach your floor plate to the database and color code it and highlight it. So that came about in the 1990s. There was a lot of information delivered to people where they tied their 2D CAD drawings to databases to say how many spaces are there of this type, what are vacant, how many rooms does this department have, etc. And we want to be able to highlight that by using the computer. One of the basics of, and this is really the last little technical thing, and there will be no quiz, but there is what is in database basics is what's called multi-part location ID. A multi-part ID means that you have a building, a floor, and a room. And they will have codes, and this is very similar to your accounting codes and your budget codes. You don't mess with the facilities department's coding structure for what is a building, what is a floor, and what is a space. People have lots of friendly names for those places, and a database will have as many alternate names that somebody may want to call that building something else, or may want to give it a new name because somebody donated a bunch of money and wants their name on the building. But we want to make sure that we always understand what location codes are, because that's where we have a location for a piece of equipment, or we have to send a tradesperson to do some work on that particular piece of equipment. And the same holds true for our building codes and floor codes equal the drawing name. So in this case, it's the Eagle building, so it's eagle-01.dwg. So that way, all of your drawings are in a structured format and can actually talk to your database. So you have a database over there. The space code relates to the actual space. Very simple in the fact that it is logical, but it does take quite a bit of a computer program to be able to tie these things together. And when we look at BIM, this is being done on an exponential scale, where everything in a BIM drawing is an object. And so it has huge amounts of characteristics. And what Brenda was saying about being able to attach huge amount of valuable data to those objects is just an amazing piece of technology. Very exciting. However, it is daunting for people who have to do LEED certification and manage gigabytes or terabytes of data. So we want to be able to do basic reporting, all looks like spreadsheets, and that's what a database does, is it actually pulls all the data together and gives you the ability to slice and dice and filter and sort and pull information together to either run it as a recurring report or it's going to be a one-off analysis. And typically people will then take this information, push a button, and push it back onto Excel and do their fancy stuff that they're very much used to. And then the thing that we're most involved with is move management. That's what we find facilities managers are doing, is they're moving, adding, changing. So move, adds, and change are a big part of everybody's life. And so this is typically where it is an email-driven process. Now, everything that moves, somebody has to be indicated, notified, approved, and then things happen with that kind of a back-end engine. And this is where the cloud comes into play, because your databases and your drawings and your BIM models will move to the cloud and then be interactive with email and notification communications. So that's your very brief overview from me on CAD and CAFM and CMMS.